It's good to get different perspectives on your writing. You might think it's wonderful, but if you give it to someone else in your family or friend group, they might also think it's wonderful. But sometimes you need somebody, an outside source, to read it and say, okay, maybe this doesn't make sense, or there's too many words here, or this is hard for smaller kids to understand.
Well, hello and welcome back to Uncorking a Story. I'm your host, Mike Carlin, and today I'm excited to introduce you to Christine Devane. Christine spent 13 years as a second grade teacher, and during that time, she noticed something missing on her classroom bookshelves: stories that reflect the experience of shy kids. Now, having been one herself, she knew how important it was for children to see themselves represented in the pages they read. That motivation eventually became her debut children's book, Elephant Beach. Now, I'm going to tell you something that may be hard to believe because in many situations, I come across as extremely outgoing. For years, my job has been to walk into a room of complete strangers and lead focus groups in a way that puts people at ease. I've even performed stand up and improv in front of many live audiences. And here's the truth. Here's the truth. I used to be a very shy kid, a very shy person. And depending on the situation, I still can be like, I can go into a networking event and just want to like hide in the corner, which is not great when you work in business development. you know, I really had to come over, get over that. And that's where the stand up and the improv really helped me professionally. But I could still be shy sometimes. There are times where I just don't want to engage with people. And I know that a lot of authors can relate to that. Writers naturally are shy people, which I'll tell you makes it very tough when it comes to promoting a book. I've got a friend who's got a new release coming out this month. It's actually her debut, and she's very hesitant about doing any publicity for it. And I totally get that. Authors aren't necessarily used to being the center of attention. But here's some challenging news I have for you aspiring writers and authors out there. If you've written a book, part of the gig is talking about it. Now, you've got to get uncomfortable. You've got to get comfortable. You've got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that means signings. That means speaking engagements. That means podcast appearances on shows like this. Because if you're not out there promoting your work, no one else is going to do it for you. And think about it this way: you spent years writing that book, and now it's time to believe in the power of your story and start sharing it with other people. But I love Christine's story. This idea of filling a gap really resonated with me. Not just as an author, but in my work in the product development space where I've worked for quite some time. The best products, the ones that succeed are the ones that meet a need that no one else has addressed. And, think about it this way: no one asked for an iPod, right? No one said to anybody at Apple, I would really like a device that could have a billion songs, in my pocket. But that device changed the way we experience music. And personally, I love my bone conducting headphones for swimming. They make laps in the pool a lot less monotonous and turn an activity I used to dread into one that I now look forward to. And if you think about it, writers do the same thing. We find a niche, we fill a gap, we create something meaningful. And Christine Devane saw the quiet kids in her classroom, remembered her own childhood, and wrote Elephant Beach, a story that lets shy children see themselves in a book. And I think that's awesome. I think we as writers sometimes need to think of ourselves as marketers and as product owners and, kind of as product managers in a way, because that's what we're doing. We're creating a product. Each of us is running our own small businesses in a way. And I really love how Christine, was able to fill a niche with this book, Elephant Beach. But here we go. Let's have me stop talking. Okay, you'll hear me talk again next week. And please enjoy my conversation with the amazing Christine Devane. Christine Devane was a second grade teacher for 13 years and enjoyed reading with her students. She also loves going to the beach, spending time with family and friends, traveling, and collecting lucky elephants. All those things are going to come together momentarily. She joins me today on Uncorking a Story to discuss her debut children's book, Elephant Beach. Welcome to Uncorking a Story, Christine.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today.
I'm so excited to have you here, Christine. I'm curious, where does your story as an author begin?
So it begins when I was little. I was very shy and quiet, and I loved reading books. It was my favorite thing to do. I also really enjoyed animals. I wanted to be a vet, but I cannot stomach blood. So that path did not work for me. So then when I was a teenager, I started working with children. I started working at after school programs, babysitting, and I found it to be very rewarding because every day is different. You get to do all sorts of creative activities with children. So then I went to Merrimack College and I became a teacher from there. And when I was teaching, I realized how important story time was because all of the kids would sit on the floor. We would read a book together, and most books are about social skills. So we had a lot of good discussions from the book. And it was then that I realized there aren't really a lot of books on shy kids. So I decided to write my own.
Yeah, and being a shy kid yourself, I mean, were you kind of attuned to that a little bit in terms of, hey, there's not really, yeah, I don't want to say not a market for it, but not a lot of, I guess, to put it in marketing terms, product out there for stories for shy kids.
Yeah, when I was little, I realized there weren't a lot of books on shy kids, but I noticed it more as an adult when I was a teacher because every classroom has all different personalities. And usually you're going to have a few kids that are pretty quiet. And I tried to find books to work on social skills with them that focused on being shy. And there really weren't a lot out there to pick from.
Yeah, so you saw a gap in the market and you decided to fill it. Tell me, what was the writing process like for Elephant Beach?
So actually, I started writing the book 10 years ago. So I decided I wanted to write the book and then I joined a lot of groups. So there's an author group called the SCBWI, and they had a few conferences that I went to. They had one in Springfield and one in New York City. And then I started taking some classes, and I also joined a local group that met in the library and they would give critiques on your story. So I just started to join a lot of communities that I found would be helpful to writing children's books. And it was funny, I spent all this time on it. I sent it out to a lot of people. And then as years passed, I left teaching. I'm now home with three small children. And then last year, somebody called me to publish the book. So it happened in a very roundabout way.
Oh wow! So somebody you had sent it to, years earlier, came back to you and said, "Hey, now's the time for this to come out."
Yes.
Very cool. That's a great story. I love the fact that one of your first things that you did was sort of join some writing communities. I think a lot of people think about writing as a very solitary activity, and of course, when you're writing, it typically is solitary. You're doing it alone. I would do it, in my morning commute or in the evenings or on hotel rooms or something like that. But you are alone a bit, but there is this communal aspect to it that I don't think people understand at first, and how valuable it can be. How valuable was joining writing communities for you?
I found it to be extremely helpful. So, what I tell a lot of people is it's good to get different perspectives on your writing. You might think it's wonderful, but if you give it to someone else in your family or friend group, they might also think it's wonderful. But sometimes you need somebody that's an outside source to read it and say, okay, maybe this doesn't make sense, or there's too many words here, or this is hard for smaller kids to understand. So, in the group that I went to, everybody got a turn. I think it was every 2 months. So every week, somebody would bring their story and bring enough copies for everyone. And you would give everyone feedback on the story. So good, bad, whatever, just to give people feedback on their writing. And then when it was your turn, I found it to be very helpful because everyone had different perspectives. So some people would say, oh, this sounds perfect. Or some people might say, this is something you should change, or here's an idea, or here's something that might work differently. So I just thought it was helpful to get different people that are in the same mindset to look at it because like I said, my family and friends are wonderful, but a lot of them aren't interested in children's books. So they're going to read it and say, oh, Christine, this is perfect. But it's nice to have somebody that's going to give you real feedback. And now they have a really good website with a lot of resources. So I've told people that it's really good to join that. They do a lot of virtual things, but they also have small groups that are in your area that you can join.
Yeah. I mean, having that in objective feedback is invaluable because you're right. I mean, friends and family, they may not want to hurt your feelings, right? I mean, it's hard for
Exactly.
them to be objective, but somebody who is critiquing your work as part of a writing group or something like that. There's no incentive for them to be dishonest with you. you know.
Yes. So they're going to tell you how they really feel.
Yeah. So I know one of the things that was important to you in sort of drafting the characters in this book was giving your main character, the little girl, red hair, and that
Yes.
was because you had red hair growing up. Did you feel different because you had red hair?
Yeah, I did because there's not a lot of people out there that have red hair. And the funny thing is, I always imagined the character having red hair. And this was before I had children. And I have two boys and a girl. And now my daughter actually has really bright red hair. So a lot of people think, oh, is that Adeline in the book? So it's cute that it can connect with her now, too.
Oh my gosh! So I was born with red hair, like bright red hair, to the point where my father used to call me Red growing up. Now it's not red anymore. Any red highlights that would come out in the summertime are now gray. So no more red hair for me. But so I'm curious. You having three young children. Have you read the book to them? And what has the focus group of your own children said about the Elephant Beach?
Yeah, so I have read the book to my kids and I actually went into their classrooms last year. I did a lot of classroom visits. So I would go into the classrooms and bring beach towels and beach balls and we would read the book. And my kids were very excited about it. My oldest son was talking about it for a week. Oh, mommy's coming into school. Mommy's coming into school. So he was really excited and happy about it. And my daughter loves the fact that my picture's on the back of the book. So she'll show everybody, this is mommy's book. This is mommy's book. So it's pretty funny. And they like going to the library and seeing the book there. And I've taken them to a few author things with me. Sometimes things are too long, so they don't go, but they like to help me get the stuff ready and pack the box up and say, oh, well, you need to bring this, you need to bring that. But I love being able to share it with them and show them what I've done.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool. You could be like a little celebrity for your kids. Sounds like.
Yeah.
How did it feel going back into a classroom after having left a classroom professionally? Prior to this.
It was fun because I still obviously love working with children. And now I don't have to worry about giving them tests and all that. I can just go in and do a fun activity with them. So the kids really enjoyed it because it brings the story to life by actually pretending they're at the beach. And kids also got really excited to share their own experiences because almost all kids have been to the beach. So before we read the book, usually we talk about what they like to do at the beach, what they bring to the beach, and then their favorite animal because mine's an elephant. So it's been a lot of fun. I went to about 20 classrooms in the spring, early summer before school got out.
Very cool. And so keeping yourself very, very busy. I guess it's your book tour of sorts.
Yes.
So I'm curious, is there another book in you? Is there a follow-up to Elephant Beach we could look forward to?
So I actually have two books I'm working on. They are not connected to Elephant Beach. I think down the road maybe I'll write another elephant book. But I have one book that they're working on the illustrations for. It's called Grandpa Dolly, and it's on a much different topic, but it deals with grief and loss. And when I was teaching, I also found that there weren't really a lot of books that dealt with that, even though children usually have to deal with grief in some form, whether it be a pet, grandparent, or a parent. So it just shows a little girl. She's very close with her grandfather. I was very close with my grandfather. He didn't pass away when I was little, but it just shows a story about how they're close and he passes away. And in order to deal with the grief, she tries doing things to bring his memory to life. So things that they used to do together, she does with her doll now. So I wanted to do that to have teachers have a resource to kind of help kids in those situations because there really aren't a lot of them. And then I have another book I'm working on called Letters and Sounds with Lola and Sophie. And that's about my previous dog and my dog now. It's just an alphabet book that's kind of funny because they're very opposite dogs. Because I found that my kids love alphabet books, and especially where they're in school and they're learning their letters, they like to read them. So I thought it would be a funny story.
Yeah. Yeah, but I love that, you're going again to this place of with Grandpa Dolly, trying to find fitting a need to a market that doesn't that exists, right? So
Yes.
kids experiencing grief. Yeah, I can imagine it's hard to find a book on that in a bookstore. So I love that you're doing that.
Well, thank you. Yes, I found when I was a teacher, sometimes it was easier for kids to understand certain topics by reading a story to them instead of just talking to them. They hear adults talking to them all the time. So, reading a story helps them have something to relate to. And especially when somebody's dealing with grief, it's really hard because you don't necessarily want to put them on the spot and make them upset at school. But if you read a book that has to do with the topic, then you can show them that you care, but also not really put them on the spot when they're at school.
Right. You could show that they're seen and demonstrate that they're
Yes.
seen without having to like shine a spotlight on them and
Yes.
making them self-conscious about it. Yeah, and it's particularly with grief. Adults have a hard time with grief, right? We do. And
Yes.
kids, they don't know how to process things the way we do. And if adults have a hard time with it, kids certainly. I remember when my mother-in-law passed away, my kids were younger, and it was hard. It's hard to verbalize those feelings and share why you're upset. You just because you're sometimes you just don't
Yeah.
know, and it hits at odd times.
Yeah, it's very tough, and it's something that children have a hard time understanding. And I remember when I was a teacher, we would get an email and say, "Oh, so and so had a death in the family." And it was tough because, like I said, you don't want to make the children upset at school by talking to them, but you want them to know that you care. So that's why I found that sometimes reading a book on a topic lets them know you care without putting them on the spot, making them upset, pointing them out. So that's why I thought it would be a helpful book for teachers and parents to have.
Absolutely. I'm curious. I always like to get to know my guests a little bit more by asking some pop culture questions. So I'm curious, when you were younger and reading a lot, what were some of the things that you like to read? Like, what were you drawn to?
So somebody was talking about the book The Secret Garden. That was one of my favorite books when I was little. I remember reading that book, and one of my best friends and I would take turns reading it, and we're actually still best friends and our kids are friends. But that's a book that I loved reading when I was little. And I'm trying to think of some other ones. I really liked reading about Jane Goodall. I remember I was in second or third grade and we got to pick a person to do a biography project on. And since I'm an animal person, I found her to be really interesting. So that really heightened some of my interest in reading and animals.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you think of animals, that she's like one of the first names that absolutely
Yes.
comes to mind, right? What about TV? Did you have any TV shows that you liked growing up that you were must see TV for you?
We are a big Disney family, so a lot of the Disney movies and stuff like that. I like The Little Mermaid because she had red hair. um, And I like Dumbo because it's an elephant, even though Dumbo now, when you watch it as adults, kind of sad. But I did love it as a child. I'm trying to think of some other ones, but definitely all the Disney movies. We were a big Disney family.
Yeah. What about music? What'd you like listening to?
We were very into Michael Jackson when I was little. I remember listening to him a lot in the car.
Yeah, absolutely. It's we had those when I was growing up. It was the '80s, so we had the Michael Jackson versus Prince debates. Did you ever get involved in a Michael Jackson versus Prince debate, Christine?
I can't say I've been involved in that, but I would definitely take Michael Jackson.
Sure, sure. Although Prince was
Yes.
a heck of a guitar player. Um,
Yes, he was.
Now I'm curious if we could go back in time and whisper some words of advice into your younger self's ear. That little girl who's doing a lot of reading, spending time in the library. What would you tell your younger self, Christine?
I would tell her to try to be a little bit more confident and try to take a little bit more of a chance joining groups, which is what the book tries to show because she's by herself reading and she does eventually join the group and have fun. And when I was younger, sometimes I just wanted to stay by myself. And I have a son that's like that now. So I would just say that sometimes it's okay to try to step out of your comfort zone and join a group more.
Yeah, very cool. Very, very good words of advice. Christine, I imagine Elephant Beach is available wherever books are sold. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, and then Archway, and I do have a website, and I have stuffed animals in the making that should be here hopefully by Thanksgiving.
Very cool. Can you share the website address with us?
Yeah, so it's actually my name. It's Christine, and then there's a hyphen Devane. And on there, you can find the book. And then if there's any events or anything like that, and there's also a contact page. Sometimes people have been sending me things about events to go to. So there's a page right there.
Very cool. I'll be sure to put a link to that in our show notes. And Christine, I will say thank you so much for stopping by and Uncorking a Story and letting me uncork yours.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to Uncorking a Story. If you'd like more information about today's guest or to find out more about Mike, go to uncorkingastory.com. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review us at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Tune in every week to hear Mike Carlin uncork a new story.